I, 29F, recently got married to Finn, 30M, in a grand marriage. It's been 1 month into our marriage and our life had been going great until crazy Sil decided to interfere in our lives and ruin everything. For context, Finn has a younger sister named Deborah, 28F, who is a divorcee. I get along really well with his parents but have always had a rocky relationship with his sister. She is incredibly negative, manipulative, and toxic. I have worked hard for years, partner and I have been together for 8.5 years, to avoid getting on her bad side. She is constantly talking bad about other people, complaining about my in-laws nonstop. They're not perfect but they're not evil or abusive. She spends all her time talking about how crappy her life is, how this or that isn't going to work out, how some boss or ex-friend really fucked her over and now she doesn't talk to them anymore or that's why she had to quit her job. Over the years I have recognized the patterns that scream. She rarely accepts any responsibility for conflict, and she is constantly trying to recruit people to her side to see her as a victim. 6 months ago, we found out that Deborah's marriage was falling apart because of her gambling problem. This was a shocker because no one had any idea that she was into gambling. Apparently, she had cleverly hidden it from everyone and used it to secretly pay off what she owed using her ex-husband's money. However, he eventually found out as thousands of dollars kept going missing and confronted her about it. When the secret came out, he tried to get her to stop, but she wouldn't listen. Eventually, he had no choice but to divorce her. Since then, things only got worse. She became unbearable to be around, her addiction taking a toll on her personality. The divorce didn't just make her change, if anything, it made her even more difficult, casting a dark cloud over any chance of her getting better. I have always done my best to just be neutral and supportive whenever I am around her as I don't want her to find a reason to get pissed at me. She lives across the country from us so we usually only saw her once or twice a year anyway. Unfortunately, as soon as me and Finn got engaged, Deborah flipped a switch with me. It started with her storming off when we announced our engagement, during Christmas time last year. Later, she apologized and told us that our engagement announcement had made her feel bad about her past failed relationships. Despite her initial reluctance, she accepted my invitation to be a bridesmaid at our wedding, giving the impression that she was supportive despite the underlying tensions. Despite this, she went from being friendly to, gradually, ignoring me anytime she saw me. For some reason, she remained involved with all the wedding activities like when I went dress shopping and had my bridal shower. She criticized everything about the wedding every step of the way, out loud. My future mill and fiancé both called her out on her behavior but it didn't help. I confronted her about this gently, I don't do well with conflict, and asked if I did anything wrong. She denied anything was wrong and brushed me off. Just before our wedding, my in-laws decided to take us all out on a family vacation. I was a bit nervous about spending multiple vacation days around my Sil as she had started to become a headache for me. As expected, during the vacation, she was in an especially bad mood. She was lashing out at everyone, weirdly demanding that we rearrange the furniture in the Airbnb that we were all staying at because she didn't like the way they were there. Her parents and my partner sometimes enabled this kind of irrational behavior as they were afraid of her anger issues and they basically all did whatever she asked for in the hope that she would shut up. I was starting to get a little tired of her behavior after a few days and was trying to just keep to myself, out of her warpath. Unfortunately, she seemed to notice this, when I tried to politely decline some unsolicited advice she was offering me related to my work, that I had not asked for. She then started to accuse me of snapping at her, which my lord would have felt so good to actually do after all these years, and then tried to call me out in front of her whole family. I firmly informed her that I am an expert in my field, which is why I have a high-paying job, and thus, I was never seeking her advice. Her audacity surprised me, especially considering she had no idea about my line of work yet decided to meddle in my business. She basically spent the entire rest of the trip trying to get me to talk to her about how I had snapped at her. My partner told me whenever I would go to bed she would sit with my mill and him and talk about how she doesn't know what's wrong with me. She would force them to listen and tell them that I was always condescending to her and treated her like she was stupid. My partner tried to explain to her my point of view but she instantly dismissed it and accused him that he had changed after getting engaged to me. When our vacation ended, I was glad that I wouldn't have to see her around. I decided to not think much about the incident and got busy with my upcoming wedding preparations. But, unfortunately, Deborah had decided to extend her stay. She spent her time making up stories and spreading false rumors about me to my fiancé's relatives. I wouldn't have minded as much until one of his cousins called to confirm a crazy rumor she had spread about me saying that I was not taking care of my fiancé and he was very unhappy with me. My fiancé assured his cousin that this was completely false and he was quite happy in our relationship. It was clear that Deborah was trying to manipulate people into thinking that I was a bad person. Finn and I talked about this. He expressed his frustration with Deborah's manipulative actions and acknowledged that her behavior had crossed a line and was tarnishing our relationship in the eyes of his family. I decided that I didn't want this kind of negativity around me, especially on the day of our marriage. I invited my in-laws and Sil out for lunch so we could have an open discussion regarding this. My fiancé couldn't be with me during this discussion as he had an important work trip. During our lunch, I laid my opinion out on the table and firmly told Sil that if she continued to say bad things about me, she would not be invited to my wedding. Hearing this, Deborah started yelling at me that I had no right to talk to her this way. My mother-in-law asked her to quiet down, but Deborah continued to yell that I was just a poor girl who had got the chance to marry her rich brother, so I should talk to her with more respect. I looked at her blankly as she accused me of trying to steal her brother for his money and that I was nothing more than a gold digger. My mother-in-law stepped in at this point, loudly telling Deborah to shut up and reprimanding her for speaking to me that way. My father-in-law also looked pissed and started to apologize to me for her behavior. Deborah tried to argue, claiming that I was attempting to steal from their family inheritance. I interjected to remind Deborah that I was quite financially independent and hailed from an affluent family myself. While we might not be as wealthy as my fiancé's family, it didn't mean we didn't lead a comfortable life ourselves. I pointed out to her that her condescension stemmed mostly from the fact that we were immigrants, which, in her eyes, somehow implied we were less well off than them. Deborah's eyes widened and she started to stutter, not knowing what to say. I firmly reminded her that this was her last chance to change, and if she continued down this path, both me and my fiancé would uninvite her from the wedding. She looked pissed, but there was nothing more that she could say. After our conversation that day, I returned home still feeling distraught. My fiancé, when he came back home after his work trip, sensed something was wrong and asked me about it. I shared the details of my conversation with Deborah, and he was shocked, to say the least. When I revealed to him the nature of her accusations, his surprise turned into anger. He told me that Deborah had no right to talk to me this way. He immediately called his parents and had a long conversation with them, and they all agreed that Deborah was getting out of control at this point. They decided to investigate further to figure out what was up with her. They quietly reached out to some of her buddies to get the lowdown. Turns out, she was still neck deep in gambling, feeding that addiction of hers. This news freaked us all out, especially her parents, who had given access to their bank account. They were scared she would drain all of their money with her gambling habit. Finn decided to have a real talk with her. It was tough, but he wanted her to get help for her gambling problem. However, Deborah, being stubborn as ever, wouldn't admit she had a serious issue. The whole situation was starting to get messier when his parents removed her access from their bank account. Deborah stormed into their place yelling at them angrily. She accused them of betraying her. She then went on about how they didn't understand her, that her gambling was none of their business. Deborah was furious that they had taken away her access to their bank account, claiming it was her money, too. She even went on making wild claims that they were all trying to control her life. It was a chaotic scene, emotions flying all over the place, and there was no calming her down. Finn told me about what Deborah had done, and he seemed really worried about her. He and his folks were stuck, wondering if anything they tried would actually help Deborah. They thought about interventions, counseling, and even support groups. But they knew Deborah would never agree to any of these options. A few weeks after that incident, Finn's parents invited both of us for dinner, and we knew it was a serious talk. As we gathered around the table, they looked more serious than ever. His parents opened up about their increasing concerns regarding Deborah. They were worried that her gambling addiction would lead her to drain the family wealth, and they didn't want to fuel her destructive habits by leaving her any part of their inheritance. Finn tried to protest that this might not be unfair because, despite her antics, he loved her. I agreed with Finn as well, because regardless of what I felt for Deborah, I thought she deserved to have an equal inheritance as Finn from their parents. But Finn's mother stopped us mid-track and nervously shared that she had recently discovered some of her cherished jewelry from her grandmother was missing. They got quite concerned as the jewelry was worth thousands of dollars and decided to review the CCTV footage, where they saw Deborah walking into their bedroom and stealing this jewelry from the locker. The room fell into a stunned silence as we tried to process the weight of this betrayal. My in-laws then shared that they had tried to confront Deborah regarding this incident, but she had refused to accept her fault despite evidence. This is why they had begrudgingly decided not to leave her anything from their inheritance anymore. Finn was taken aback, but he understood the gravity of the situation. It was clear that Deborah's actions had not only strained our family relationship but were now putting a financial burden on his family. We understood now why his parents were contemplating making changes in their will to ensure that Deborah wouldn't have access to their assets. It was a tough decision for them, but they felt it was necessary to protect their financial well-being and the future of the family. Finn and I supported them, knowing that it was a difficult but essential step to safeguard everyone's interests. In the following days, Finn and his parents initiated conversations with legal professionals to navigate the complexities of adjusting their will. They were determined to find a solution that would protect their assets with an ironclad will so Deborah would not be able to contest it. Our wedding was fast approaching, so despite the ongoing family drama, I threw myself into the whirlwind of wedding preparations. My days became a flurry of fittings, decorations, and last-minute details. Out of nowhere, Deborah started getting involved in wedding activities, like when I went dress shopping and had my bridal shower. She criticized everything about the wedding planning every step of the way, out loud. Again, I had to confront her about this gently. I don't do well with conflict, and asked if I did anything wrong. As the wedding day approached, despite Deborah's negativity, our ceremony turned out to be a beautiful celebration of love. The venue was adorned with flowers and delicate decorations, creating an enchanting atmosphere. Surrounded by friends and family, Finn and I exchanged heartfelt vows, sealing our commitment to each other. The joyous moments, however, were tinged with a sense of unease as I couldn't help but notice Deborah's distant and displeased demeanor. During the festivities, she sat in a corner, wearing a scowl that betrayed her true feelings. Despite my attempts to focus on the joyous occasion, I couldn't ignore the dark cloud cast by Deborah's resentment. Nonetheless, the love and support from others eclipsed her negativity, making our wedding a cherished memory despite the challenges. After a wonderful honeymoon, we returned home and got back into the swing of our daily lives. Work and routine took over, and things seemed to settle down. However, out of the blue, yesterday, my crazy Sil did something to set our marriage ablaze. She invited herself to have dinner with us, telling us how much she missed us and had not seen Finn for a long time. Finn asked me if I was okay with having her dinner, and I begrudgingly agreed, as I didn't want to be rude to my Sil. While we were having a good meal, Deborah, seemingly out of the blue, started talking about how she absolutely detested cheating partners and cheaters were nothing but useless pieces of shit. We looked at her curiously, thinking where she was going with this, when Deborah looked me square in the face and asked me how it felt to be a useless piece of shit. My brows furrowed in confusion as Deborah began to yell, accusing me of having an affair with my coworker, Matt. She started pulling out some pictures she had taken of me and one of my coworkers and waved them around, insisting that she had caught us red-handed. I knew I had never been unfaithful to Finn. As I examined the pictures, anyone could clearly see that they were just innocent snapshots of us having coffee or lunch. Occasionally, due to the long queues at my workplace cafeteria, my coworker and I sometimes opted to grab a quick lunch outside. Deborah twisted these casual moments captured in the photos into something they were not, evidence of an affair. The reality was far from her unfounded accusations, and I felt a surge of annoyance at her attempts to tarnish my integrity and strain my relationship with Finn. Before I could speak, my husband, shocked and visibly upset, stepped in to defend me. He asked Deborah why she was following me around and taking pictures of me without my consent with my coworkers. She started justifying this by saying how she wanted to investigate me to ensure that I wasn't trying to take away his money. Finn firmly told Deborah that her claims were baseless and that she was creating unnecessary drama. He tried to reason with her, asking her to stop spreading lies and trying to harm our relationship. Deborah, however, was relentless. She continued to accuse me of cheating and manipulating Finn. She went so far as to claim that she was only trying to protect him from me, as I was nothing more than a gold digger. The atmosphere grew tense as her accusations intensified. Then she pulled out a screenshot of a conversation she claimed to have had with an employee from my workplace on Facebook. In the screenshot, Deborah had asked this particular employee if I and the coworker in question were having an affair, and the employee had responded that we seemed suspiciously close, suggesting it might be possible. She shoved this screenshot under Finn's nose, insisting he needed to protect himself, painting me as a threat to our marriage. Finn, glancing at the screenshot, wore a perplexed expression. Despite my sincere assurance that the pictures were innocent moments, his trust seemed to waver, caught in the web of family loyalty and conflicting narratives. I started to protest that this was absolutely ridiculous and Deborah was just making up random lies to ruin our marriage. To my surprise, Finn turned to me and asked me if I really had nothing to do with this man in the pictures. I was absolutely shocked that he was even asking me such a question, as I had never given him a reason to doubt me throughout our entire relationship. Deborah started to taunt me that I was speechless because I knew that her accusations were all true and I had been caught in my own lies. I started yelling at Deborah to get out of the house, but Finn told me that I couldn't talk to his sister this way. Taken aback by his words, I told him that if he didn't believe me, then he could walk out of this house with his sister, because there was nothing I could do at this point to change his mind. I could feel the tension in the room escalating as Deborah continued her relentless accusations of how I had stolen her brother so I could live this luxurious life and I never loved him. Her words were starting to seriously piss me off. I couldn't believe just how crazy Deborah could be to make up such ridiculous lies to ruin our marriage. Realizing that I had nothing to lose at this point, with a smirk, I turned to tell her that she had an unhealthy obsession with Big Bro and she was going to extreme lengths this time. She attempted to deny it, but I cut her off, telling her how sad it was that her own family wasn't as obsessed with her as she was with everyone else's lives. I then went on to reveal how her big brother Finn and her parents had decided to change their will. They were taking steps to potentially redirect the entire family inheritance away from her, right under her nose. Deborah's face transformed from the fury of accusations to a mix of disbelief and shock. She stammered, trying to process the bombshell about her family potentially altering their will. Her eyes widened as the weight of the news sank in, and for a moment, the room fell silent. Finn attempted to signal me to halt the conversation, likely feeling remorseful. However, I reminded him that just moments ago, he was siding with Deborah, blaming me for an imaginary affair. I asserted that he had no right to ask me to stop. Caught in the crossfire of family drama and unfolding revelations, he looked like a deer caught in headlights, exchanging uneasy glances between Deborah and me. The air was charged with tension as everyone grappled with the sudden turn of events. I then went on to tell both Finn and Deborah to get out of the house. I told them that I had enough of their drama and made it clear that I couldn't tolerate it any longer. I told Finn not to return until he apologized for believing his sister's unfounded accusations. Finn didn't protest and escorted his sister out of the house. My in-laws have been calling me concerned since the incident. I haven't checked their messages nor have I picked up their calls. I feel emotionally drained after what happened. Ida for telling the truth to my crazy Sil after she set my marriage ablaze. Update 1. Thank you for everyone's comments on my post. Taking everyone's advice, I have decided to file an HR complaint against my coworker who apparently talked with Deborah about my alleged affair with Matt. I haven't reached out to this particular coworker directly as I don't have the strength for any more confrontations. Despite what some of you have commented, I don't think that Deborah is capable enough to fabricate an entire screenshot by herself as she isn't that smart. Hopefully, the truth is going to be out when our HR confronts my coworker regarding the screenshot. Update 2. It's been a week since Deborah tried to ruin my marriage and it's been hell. Thank you to everyone who comforted and helped me. Still kind of in limbo. I haven't slept more than a couple of hours each night and definitely needed a few quiet rest days. HR finally talked to my coworker about the mess. Turns out, Deborah fed her some twisted stories, and she fell for it. The coworker owned up to her mistake right away, admitting she fabricated the story about Matt and me, believing it wouldn't lead to any consequences. Our workplace, known for its strict policies against gossip, reprimanded the coworker severely. She faced a 1-month termination, highlighting the seriousness of spreading unfounded rumors. This was a lesson for everyone about the consequences of believing and spreading baseless gossip. This not only cleared my name but also showed how destructive false info can be. Finn had attempted to reach out to me several times over the week. Yesterday, I finally agreed to have a sit down with him and his parents. I firmly told him that I didn't want Deborah to be present and he immediately agreed, assuring me that he would make sure that she wasn't there when I came to their place. Finn, trying to navigate the aftermath, looked remorseful as we sat down with his parents. We delved into the issue, addressing the damage Deborah had caused. Finn apologized sincerely, acknowledging that he had got carried away that night, but when he sat down and thought about this entire ordeal with a clear mind, he realized just how ridiculous her accusations were. His parents, equally upset, expressed their concern and apologized to me for how she had impacted our relationship. With a sense of vulnerability, Finn admitted that he had let family loyalty cloud his judgment during the confrontation. He confessed that he had acted impulsively, and now, realizing the gravity of Deborah's actions, he deeply regretted not trusting me. Finn assured me that he would confront Deborah and set boundaries with her. We discussed seeking couples counseling to rebuild trust and address the lingering effects of her accusations. His parents pledged their support, acknowledging the need for the family to come together to resolve this messy situation. Finn then told me that he understood why I shared the info about his parents' will with Deborah, as he knew that I was trying to hurt her the way she was hurting us. He didn't hold a grudge against me for that and understood where I was coming from. My in-laws also agreed that they didn't mind that I had revealed the truth to her, as they were planning on having a conversation with her regarding this anyway. Although I appreciated all of their honesty, I also knew that I couldn't let Deborah ruin my life any further. I declared my decision to cut off ties with Deborah. Emphasizing the importance of protecting my well-being in our marriage, I explained that her toxic influence had reached a breaking point and communicated my intent to prioritize our marriage and emotional health from now on over maintaining a connection with someone who had repeatedly shown a penchant for stirring chaos in our lives. Finn, still grappling with the aftermath, supported my choice, realizing the necessity of distancing ourselves from Deborah's destructive behavior. My in-laws looked a bit sad about my decision to cut off Deborah but agreed that she had gone too far and I had every right to end my relationship with her. Since this conversation, I feel much lighter and happier today. Finn is going to be back at our place after his short work trip tomorrow. I have missed him despite our fight and can't wait to spend time with him tomorrow. Update 3. It's been 5 months since my last update. As expected, Deborah did reach out to me a few months ago. In her message, she dodged any acknowledgement of the pain she had caused us. She justified her baseless accusations by claiming a misguided sense of protection for her big brother, continuing to insist that I was a threat to their family. The message was riddled with more accusations, like how I was forcing her brother to not talk to her and I had destroyed her family, conveniently painting herself as the victim in this situation while ignoring the chaos she had unleashed in the first place. Deborah's lack of genuine remorse or understanding of the gravity of her actions was evident, further solidifying my decision to maintain distance from someone who seemed incapable of self-reflection or empathy. In the months that have followed, Finn and I have focused on rebuilding trust in our marriage. We attended couples counseling to address the lingering effects of Deborah's accusations. The sessions helped us communicate better and understand each other's perspectives. Slowly but surely, our relationship started to heal. We have remained steadfast in our decision to cut ties with Deborah. Despite occasional attempts from Finn's parents to mediate, we have stood firm to protect our emotional well-being. Life has settled into a more peaceful routine. Work, family, and shared moments became our focus. We have found solace in each other, leaving behind the chaos Deborah had brought into our lives. Finn and I have grown stronger as a couple, learning to navigate challenges together. While the scars from Deborah's actions still linger, our commitment to each other prevails every day. The decision to prioritize our marriage over a toxic relationship has proved to be the right one, fostering a newfound sense of stability and happiness in our lives.